The old alien sat in the corner of the veterans' hall, his purple skin now faded and wrinkled with age. Taijo belonged to the Makari species, known across the galaxy for their 3 eyes and tough scaled skin. Today he had agreed to share his war stories with the younger generation. "Record, please," said the young interviewer, placing a small floating device in front of Taijo. Taijo nodded slowly, his 3 eyes blinking at different times. The middle eye, the one that could see heat patterns, focused on the recorder. The ceremonial scars that covered his arms told the story of his long military career before he even spoke a word. "I served in the coalition forces for 42 cycles, Taijo began, his voice raspy and clicking. The translator converted his natural speech into words others could understand. "But nothing in my training prepared me for humans." The room grew quiet. Even now, 50 years after the war, the mention of humans made many aliens nervous. "Our first meeting with humans was not planned," Taijo continued. "The coalition was expanding, as we had done for thousands of years. We found new worlds, brought them into our protection, and shared our advanced ways. Some called it conquest. We called it progress." Taijo reached for his drink, a thick blue liquid that helped keep his aging body functioning. His hand shook slightly. "We detected Earth signals for many years before we decided to make contact. Their broadcast showed a divided planet. Many nations, many leaders, many wars among themselves. The Coalition Council believed they would be easy to bring under our control." He made a sound like dry leaves rustling, a Makari laugh. "That was our first mistake. We thought their division made them weak. We did not understand that humans are never more united than when facing an outside threat." The interviewer adjusted the recording device. "What happened during first contact?" Taijo's middle eye closed, a sign of painful memories. "We followed standard protocol. We destroyed a small defensive satellite to show our power. Then we sent a message demanding their surrender. We expected fear. We expected quick acceptance of our terms." He paused, all 3 eyes now looking at something far away in his memories. "Instead, we received a transmission from a human commander named Do-hyun. I remember his face clearly. No scales, just soft skin with hair on top of the head and around the mouth. So strange to our eyes, but it was his words that truly shocked us." Taijo leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. He said only, "You have made a terrible mistake." No pleading, no fear, just those 6 words. The old veteran shifted in his seat, his damaged leg making a mechanical sound as he moved. The Coalition Admiral, Grek, laughed at this response. He ordered a second demonstration of power, the destruction of one of their larger space stations. 16 humans died. We sent another message expecting surrender. Taijo's scales rippled, a sign of distress among his kind. The human response came from a female leader named Sunhee. She appeared calm, but our emotion readers detected something we had rarely seen in first contact situations. Cold anger, carefully controlled. She said, "We will speak with those who come in peace. You have chosen a different path." The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. What did the coalition do then? Admiral Grek followed the standard invasion plan. We positioned our fleet around their planet. We targeted their military bases for the first strikes. Everything by the book, the same approach that had worked on 17 other worlds. Taijo took another drink, his hand steadier now as he lost himself in the telling. We launched our first attack on their Pacific fleet. Our weapons were far beyond their technology. Their ships burned. Their aircraft fell from the sky. It was over in minutes. He set down his drink carefully. Then something unexpected happened. As our ships moved to the next target, the humans launched what appeared to be primitive missiles toward our fleet. Our sensors barely registered them as threats. Their propulsion technology was centuries behind ours. Admiral Grek didn't even order defensive measures. All 3 of Taijo's eyes widened, recreating his shock from that day. The missiles split open before reaching our ships. Each one released thousands of tiny metal pieces, simple balls and sharp fragments. Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons and large objects, not clouds of small debris. These primitive weapons tore through our hull plating, damaged our sensor arrays, and killed dozens of crew members. The interviewer made a surprised sound. "They defeated your advanced shields with simple metal pieces?" "Yes," Taijo said. "That was our second lesson about humans. They use what they have in ways you don't expect. While we relied on our advanced technology, They found its weakness and exploited it with tools they could actually build. Taijo shifted again, his mechanical leg whirring. Admiral Grek was furious. He ordered a full attack on their major cities. Our ships moved into position. Our weapons were ready. We expected to end the war that day. His voice grew quieter. Then our sensors detected movement from Earth's orbit. What we had thought was space junk, old satellites, rocket parts, debris, suddenly changed course. The humans had hidden engines on this junk and packed it with explosives. Thousands of pieces all aimed at our ships. Taijo's scales flattened against his body, a sign of remembered fear. 3 of our capital ships were destroyed in the first hour. We had never lost even one in previous conquests. The debris punctured hulls, destroyed bridge sections, and caused catastrophic reactor failures. Admiral Grek himself died when his command center was hit. The interviewer leaned forward. How did humans know to attack this way? They didn't, Taijo said simply. That's what made them so dangerous. They tried everything they could think of. Most failed, but they kept trying new approaches until something worked. No other species we encountered fought this way. Taijo looked down at his damaged leg. After the space battle, the Coalition sent ground forces. I was a junior officer in the 8th Subjugation Force. We landed in their northern continent in an area called Canada. Our scanners showed fewer defensive installations there. His outer membrane flickered with the memory. The first week went as planned. Their conventional military forces could not stand against our technology. We established forward bases and began moving toward their population centers. Taijo's breathing grew heavier. Then the humans changed tactics again. They stopped meeting us in open battle. Instead, they watched us. They learned our patterns. They studied our equipment. And they began to fight in ways we had never trained for. He pointed to a scar on his face. A human soldier named Taewoo was the first to discover that our body armor had a weak point at the joint between the chest and arm sections. He killed 6 of my unit with a primitive projectile weapon before we even knew we were under attack. By the next day, every human fighter seemed to know about this weakness. Taijo looked directly at the interviewer. That was our third lesson about humans. They share knowledge with incredible speed. What one human learns, all humans soon know. They adapt faster than any species we had encountered. The old veteran sat back, his story just beginning. And that was only our first week of fighting humans. The veterans' hall had grown quieter as more aliens gathered to hear Taijo's story. The old Makari warrior took a moment to rest his voice before continuing. His middle eye scanned the crowd, noting the mix of young recruits and fellow veterans. After our first week on Earth, Taijo resumed, the Coalition High Command sent General Kubok to take control of the invasion. He was a legendary commander who had conquered 3 worlds, without a single defeat. Taijo's scales shifted color slightly as he mentioned the name, a sign of respect among his kind, General. Kubok arrived with reinforcements and a new battle plan. He said we had been too gentle with the humans. He ordered us to show our true power. The old alien reached for his drink again, his clawed hand trembling slightly. We attacked a human city called Toronto. Our ships burned it from above while ground forces moved in to secure the area. The city fell in hours. General Kubok was pleased. He sent a message to all human leaders. Surrender or watch more cities burn. Taijo's middle eye closed briefly. The human response came from a military leader named Jinwoo. He said only, "We understand now what we face." No threats. No anger in his voice. Just calm acceptance. The interviewer leaned forward. Did they surrender? No, Taijo said, his voice dropping lower. They were telling us something important, but we didn't listen. They were saying they now understood the kind of war they needed to fight. He shifted his damaged leg, the mechanical parts making a soft whirring sound. 3 days after Toronto fell, we lost contact with our base there. General Kubok sent me with a scout team to investigate. When we arrived, the entire base was gone, not destroyed, but empty. 5,000 coalition troops had vanished. The crowd murmured in surprise. We found strange marks on the ground, like the base had been cut from the earth itself. Our sensors detected unusual radiation. Later, we learned the humans had used something they called portable nuclear devices. They had sacrificed their own city to eliminate our forces. Taijo's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress. No species we had ever encountered would destroy their own cities to defeat an enemy. It went against every war doctrine in the Coalition handbook. General Kubok was shocked. He called an emergency meeting of all field commanders. The old veteran paused, seeming to organize his thoughts. That night, as we gathered for the meeting, the humans launched their first major counterattack. They had been watching us, learning our patterns. They knew exactly when our leaders would be together. His voice grew softer, forcing everyone to lean in. They didn't use advanced weapons. They used simple flying machines, what they called crop dusters, old aircraft designed to spray plants. But now they sprayed something else, a chemical that reacted with our skin. Taejo touched a patch of discolored scales on his arm. The chemical wasn't deadly to most of us, but it made our scales glow in the dark. We couldn't hide at night anymore. Human snipers could see us from kilometers away. Such a simple trick, but so effective. The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. How did the coalition respond? General Kyubak ordered us to change tactics. We would avoid cities. We would target their food production, their power systems, their water supplies. We would force surrender by making life impossible for ordinary humans. Taejo made the dry leaf sound again, that humorless laugh. It was a good plan against any normal species. But humans surprised us again. They adapted faster than we could. When we destroyed power plants, they had backup generators ready. When we poisoned water supplies, they had already stored clean water. When we burned farms, they had hidden food reserves. He leaned forward, his voice intense. And they studied us constantly. They learned that our soldiers needed to return to our ships every 14 days for special nutrition that Earth couldn't provide. So they began targeting our supply ships with everything they had. Taejo's scales rippled with the memory. A human commander named Minho became famous for these attacks. He led small teams in fast boats against our much larger supply ships. They would plant explosive devices on the hulls, then disappear before we could respond. We lost 20 supply ships in 1 month. The old veteran took another drink. As our supplies dwindled, General Kubak ordered us to capture human food processing centers. We needed to adapt to Earth food or starve. I led a team to secure a facility in a place called Manitoba. His outer membrane flickered, a sign of deep emotion. The humans had left the facility unguarded. We thought we had finally outsmarted them. We moved in quickly and began converting the machinery to process food we could eat. Taejo's breathing grew heavier. 2 days later, half my team was dead. The humans had treated their food with compounds that were harmless to them but poisonous to us. We couldn't even tell it was there until too late. He tapped his mechanical leg. I survived because I was suspicious. I tested the food on small local animals first. When they died, I ordered my team to stop eating, but many had already consumed the poisoned food. The interviewer made a note. This seems like a violation of war conventions. Taejo's 3 eyes focused sharply on the young alien. War conventions? The humans never signed our conventions. They didn't know our rules. They were fighting for survival with whatever they had, and what they lacked in technology, they made up for with creativity and determination. He settled back in his seat. By the 3rd month of the invasion, the coalition had lost more ships and soldiers than in all 17 previous conquests combined. General Kubak was replaced. The new commander, General Seojun, arrived with the largest fleet the coalition had ever assembled. Taejo's voice took on a grim tone. General Seojun believed overwhelming force was the answer. He ordered attacks on all major human cities simultaneously. The plan was to break their will completely. The old veteran's scales darkened, a sign of sorrow. The attacks began at dawn. Our ships filled the skies above their cities. Our weapons were ready. General Seojun gave the humans 1 hour to surrender before the destruction would begin. Taejo paused, his 3 eyes looking at something far away. 55 minutes after the ultimatum, our ships began experiencing system failures. Navigation systems showed wrong coordinates. Weapon systems wouldn't fire. Communication systems broadcast static. The crowd leaned forward, captivated. The humans had created a virus, not a biological one, but a code virus that infected our ship systems. They had studied our technology from crashed ships and found weaknesses. They couldn't match our technology, so they simply turned it against us. Taejo's scales rippled in waves, showing both respect and fear. As our ships drifted in confusion, the humans launched their attack. They had gathered thousands of small aircraft, some military, some civilian. Each carried simple bombs or missiles. Alone, none could damage our capital ships. But there were so many coming from all directions. He made a gesture with his hands. showing explosions. I watched from the ground as our mighty ships, the pride of the coalition fleet, were swarmed like prey insects attacked by flying predators. The humans knew they would lose many pilots. They attacked anyway. Taejo's voice grew quieter. General Seojun's flagship was hit by over 200 human aircraft. They just kept coming, even as our defensive fire destroyed them by the dozens. The last pilot flew his damaged aircraft directly into the ship's main bridge. The flagship crashed into the ocean. The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. How many ships did the coalition lose? 23 capital ships that day, more than we had lost in a century of expansion. Taejo's voice was barely above a whisper now, and that was when we began to understand. The humans weren't just fighting us. They were learning from us. With each engagement, they grew stronger while we grew weaker. He looked around at the silent crowd. That was the day the coalition realized this would not be a simple conquest. This would be a true war, the first real war we had fought in generations. Taejo's three eyes focused on the recorder, and the humans were just getting started. The crowd in the Veterans Hall had grown larger. Word had spread about Taejo's story. Young cadets stood along the walls, their eyes wide as they listened. Even some high-ranking officers had slipped in quietly to hear the old warrior's account. Taejo took a long drink from his container before continuing. The blue liquid seemed to give him strength, and his voice became steadier. After the disaster with our fleet, the Coalition War Council met for 7 days, Taejo said. They decided on a new approach. If we couldn't break the humans from the sky, we would defeat them on the ground. He gestured with his clawed hand, drawing an invisible map in the air. The plan was to establish 5 major ground bases across Earth's continents. From these bases, we would slowly expand our control. I was assigned to the North American force under Commander Hojin. Taejo's scales shifted to a deeper purple as he recalled the memory. We landed in a remote area called Montana. The humans had few cities there, and our scouts reported minimal defenses. It seemed perfect for our needs. The old veteran's middle eye narrowed. We built our base quickly. Our technology allowed us to create defensive walls, living quarters, and command centers in just 3 days. Commander Hojin was pleased. He told us the humans would not dare attack such a well-defended position. Taejo made that dry leaf sound again, his version of a bitter laugh. On the 4th night, as most of our soldiers rested, we heard strange sounds outside our walls. Not weapons fire or vehicles, but animal noises. Specifically the sounds of local herd animals, what humans called cattle, moving around our perimeter. The interviewer tilted her head. The humans sent animals against you? Not exactly, Taejo said. The humans had attached small devices to hundreds of these animals. The devices made loud noises, flashed bright lights, and released scents that drove the animals into a panic. A stampeding herd hit our eastern wall at midnight. He tapped his claws on the table. The wall held, of course. Our barriers were designed to withstand much more powerful attacks. Commander Hojin laughed at the primitive attempt. He called it desperate. Taejo's three eyes blinked in sequence, but the cattle were not the attack. They were the distraction. While our attention was on the eastern wall, human commandos had approached from the west. They carried simple tools, what they called wire, cutters and shovels, and they targeted something we had overlooked. The power conduits, running just beneath the surface around our base, the crowd murmured in surprise. By morning, our defense systems were failing. Our sensors couldn't detect approaching threats. Our communication with the fleet was cut off. Commander Hojin ordered repairs, but the humans had done something clever. They hadn't completely destroyed the conduits, just damaged them in ways that caused them to work intermittently. Our engineers couldn't find all the problems. Taejo shifted his position, easing his old body into a more comfortable stance. 3 days we spent trying to fix our systems. 3 days where we couldn't call for help or supplies, and during those 3 days the humans were busy. His voice dropped lower, forcing everyone to lean in. On the 4th morning we discovered what they had been doing. They had diverted a nearby river. Water was flowing toward our base from all directions. Not enough to flood us quickly. Our position was on higher ground, but enough to turn the soil around us into mud. The interviewer looked confused. How was mud a weapon? Patience, Taejo said. The humans understood something about that region that we didn't. The ground there, when saturated with water, becomes unstable. As the water seeped under our base, the foundation began to shift. He made a slow sinking motion with his hand. Our heavy defense towers started tilting. Cracks appeared in our walls. Our landing pads became unusable as they warped and buckled. The humans had turned the Earth itself against us. Taijo's scales rippled with the memory. Commander Hojin ordered us to abandon the base before it collapsed completely. We had to move our equipment through mud that pulled at our legs and vehicles. It was during this retreat that I first saw humans up close. His middle eye, the heat-sensing one, widened. They didn't attack us directly. They didn't need to. They watched from the hills as we struggled through the mud. I saw a human female through my vision enhancer. She was small with dark hair and a device held to her eye. I realized she was recording our retreat, studying us, learning our weaknesses. Taijo touched the scar on his face. I raised my weapon to fire at her. She saw me and should have run. Instead, she lowered her recording device and looked directly at me. Then she did something unexpected. She nodded as if acknowledging a worthy opponent. I hesitated. That hesitation saved her life. As Commander Hojin ordered us to stop wasting energy on single targets and focus on saving our equipment. The old veteran fell silent for a moment. I learned later that the human was named Suman. She was not a soldier, but something they called a field anthropologist, a scientist who studies other species. The humans had sent scientists to observe us while we were retreating. Not just military observers, but people who could understand our culture, our behavior, our thinking. The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. Did you meet this human again? Yes, Taijo said quietly. But that comes later in my story. He straightened his posture and continued. After the Montana failure, the coalition changed tactics again. We established smaller bases, more widely spread. We avoided areas where the ground could be used against us. We improved our power systems to prevent sabotage. We adapted. His voice took on a note of grudging respect. But the humans adapted faster. They formed small resistance groups, each with different tactics. A group led by a human named Junho specialized in communications disruption. They couldn't break our encryption, so they simply created noise that made communication difficult. Another group led by someone called Yuna focused on our supply lines, not destroying them but contaminating our food and water in ways we couldn't easily detect. Taijo's claws tapped a nervous rhythm on the table. The most effective human unit was led by a commander named Minseo. His people studied how we moved, how we fought, how we responded to attacks. Then they would set traps designed specifically for our behavior patterns. The old veteran pointed to his mechanical leg. I lost my real leg to one of Minseo's traps. It looked like a human supply cache, an easy target. But when we approached, the ground gave way beneath us. Not a deep pit, just deep enough to trap us at knee level. Then the real attack came. Simple projectile weapons fired from hidden positions. We couldn't move quickly enough to escape. Tato's scales darkened with the painful memory. 30 soldiers in my unit died that day. I survived only because I fell behind a metal container that blocked the human bullets. I lay there for hours listening to the sounds of my comrades dying, unable to help them. The room had grown completely silent. When night fell, the humans retreated. I dragged myself back to our lines, leaving a trail of blood that glowed under my night vision. I expected to die before reaching safety. His outer membrane flickered with emotion. As I crawled, I heard movement behind me. I turned ready to face death and saw the same human female, Suman the scientist, watching me from the shadows. She had a weapon but didn't raise it. Instead, she pointed to my right toward a safer path back to my base. Then she disappeared into the darkness. The interviewer leaned forward. A human helped you escape? Yes, Taijo said. I didn't understand it then. Why would an enemy help me survive? It was the first time I realized that humans were not just clever fighters. They were complex beings with motivations beyond simple victory. He gestured to his mechanical leg. I made it back to our medical facility. They saved my life but couldn't save my leg. While I recovered, I heard reports from other fronts. The pattern was the same everywhere. The humans weren't trying to defeat us in large battles. They were bleeding us slowly, making every day on their planet costly. Taijo's three eyes focused on the crowd. 6 months into the ground war, the coalition had established only 12 permanent bases on Earth. We had planned to have hundreds by that time. Our casualties were mounting. Our supplies were dwindling. And the humans kept adapting, kept learning, kept finding new ways to fight us. His voice grew stronger, filled with the weight of his experience. That was when the Coalition War Council made their most desperate decision, the one that would change everything. The Veterans Hall had become packed with listeners. Some aliens stood in the doorway, straining to hear Taiho's story. The old warrior paused to take another drink, aware of the growing crowd but focused on his memories. After 6 months of costly fighting, Taijo continued, the Coalition War Council decided on a new strategy. If we couldn't defeat the humans through normal warfare, we would use our most powerful weapon. His scales darkened to a deep purple, a sign of grave seriousness among his kind. The council authorized the use of atmospheric converters. These machines could change Earth's air to make it poisonous to humans but breathable for us. 5 large ships carrying these devices entered Earth orbit. Taijo's middle eye closed briefly. I was still recovering from my injury when the announcement came. Many of our soldiers celebrated. They thought the war would soon be over. The humans would have to surrender or die slowly as their air became toxic. The interviewer's recording device moved closer. Did the Coalition inform the humans about these weapons? Yes, Taijo said. Supreme Commander Daehyun sent a message to all human governments. He explained what would happen and gave them 48 hours to surrender. He believed they would accept defeat rather than face extinction. The old veteran made a gesture with his hand, a sweeping motion that indicated a complete mistake. The human response came from a leader named Jian. She was not a military commander but a scientist. Her message was broadcast to our entire fleet. I remember her exact words. We have studied your technology. We know how your converters work. If you deploy them, we will respond in kind. Taijo's 3 eyes blinked rapidly, showing his remembered confusion. Commander Daehyun dismissed the threat. Humans didn't have our technology. They couldn't possibly have developed atmospheric converters of their own. He ordered the deployment to begin. The old warrior's breathing became heavier. The 5 ships moved into position. The first converter was activated over a region called Europe. It began releasing chemicals into the upper atmosphere. Our sensors showed the air composition starting to change. He paused, his claws gripping the edge of the table. 3 hours after activation, our sensors detected launches from multiple locations on Earth. Not missiles aimed at our ships, but smaller rockets heading into their own atmosphere. The humans were releasing chemicals of their own, chemicals designed to neutralize our converters. The crowd murmured in surprise. Somehow, they had analyzed our technology and created a countermeasure in just 6 months. Our scientists said this should have been impossible. The humans shouldn't have been able to understand our advanced chemistry, let alone develop a response so quickly. Taijo's scales rippled with the memory. Commander Daehyun ordered the converter ships to increase output. The humans launched more counter-chemical rockets. It became a race, our converters against their neutralizers. He made that dry leaf sound again, his bitter laugh. Then we discovered the truth. The humans hadn't developed this countermeasure during the war. They had created it decades earlier, as protection against their own pollution. They had adapted an existing technology to fight us. Once again, they used what they had in ways we never expected. The interviewer looked confused. But surely the Coalition's technology was superior. Superior, yes. But the humans had something we didn't expect. A complete willingness to sacrifice themselves. Taijo's voice grew softer. As the chemical battle continued in the atmosphere, human aircraft began suicide missions against our converter ships. His outer membrane flickered with emotion. They knew they couldn't penetrate our shields with their weapons, so they loaded their aircraft with explosive materials and flew directly into our ships at their highest possible speed. Most were destroyed by our defenses, but some got through. Taijo's middle eye, the heat-sensing one, closed tightly, as if trying to shut out the memory. The third converter ship was hit by 7 human aircraft in rapid succession. The impacts created a small breach in the shield. Then a larger human aircraft, what they called a commercial airliner, hit the same spot. The resulting explosion destroyed the ship completely. He looked around at the silent crowd. 200 Coalition crew members died in that explosion, but the human sacrifice was greater. We learned later that their aircraft carried volunteers, people who knew they would die. The airliner alone had 50 humans aboard. Taijo's scales darkened further. Within 2 days, 3 of our 5 converter ships had been destroyed. The atmospheric conversion was failing. Commander Daehyun ordered the remaining ships to retreat to a higher orbit. while the council considered options. The old veteran shifted his mechanical leg, the servos whirring softly. It was during this pause that I was assigned to a new unit. Despite my injury, my experience fighting humans was valuable. I joined Special Assessment Team 8, led by Commander Minjae. Our mission was not to fight, but to study human behavior and recommend strategies. Taijo's voice took on a different tone, more thoughtful, less haunted. For the first time, I was asked to think about humans rather than just fight them. I reviewed battle records, studied their tactics, analyzed their responses to our technology, and I began to see patterns that disturbed me deeply. He leaned forward, his three eyes intense. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were learning from every encounter. Each time we used a new weapon or tactic, they studied it, understood it, and found a way to counter it. They were evolving as warriors faster than any species we had ever encountered. The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. What did your team recommend to the council? We recommended immediate withdrawal from Earth, Taijo said simply. We concluded that a conventional victory was impossible. The longer we fought, the more the humans learned. They were turning our own technology and tactics against us. His claws tapped the table nervously. The council rejected our recommendation. They couldn't accept defeat by a less advanced species. Instead, they approved a plan for what they called a decisive engagement, a massive ground assault on the human military headquarters in a region called Colorado. Taijo's scales rippled with frustration. Commander Minjae argued against the plan. He presented our team's analysis showing that large-scale attacks played to human strengths. They excelled at defensive operations where they could use their knowledge of the terrain. The council ignored him. The old veteran's voice grew heavier. The assault force included 20,000 of our best troops, supported by our most advanced ground vehicles and air support. I was assigned as an advisor, due to my experience with human tactics. We landed at dawn, surrounding the mountain facility where their central command was located. Taijo paused, seeming to gather strength for what came next. The initial attack went exactly as planned. Our forces breached the outer defenses easily. The human resistance seemed disorganized and weak. By midday, we had pushed them back to their central facility, a bunker built into the mountain itself. His three eyes focused on something distant, seeing the past. Commander Seongho, who led the assault, was pleased. He believed we had finally broken the humans' will to fight. He ordered our forces to prepare for the final push into the mountain bunker. Taijo's breathing became irregular. That was when I noticed something wrong. The humans were retreating too easily. Their defensive positions were too weak. This didn't match their usual tactics. I warned Commander Seongho that it might be a trap. His scales darkened to almost black. He dismissed my concerns. He said I had grown too cautious after losing my leg. He ordered the advance to continue. Our forces pushed forward, entering the mountain through multiple access points. Taijo fell silent for a long moment. 2 hours later, as our troops reached the central chambers of the facility, the entire mountain exploded. The crowd gasped. The humans had rigged their own headquarters with explosive devices throughout the mountain. They had evacuated their important personnel days earlier, leaving only volunteer fighters to draw us in. When enough of our forces were inside, they collapsed the entire facility. Taijo's voice became a whisper. 18,000 coalition soldiers died in seconds. The mountain buried them. Commander Seongho, our vehicles, our weapons, all gone. The humans sacrificed their own command center and hundreds of their people to deal us the most devastating defeat in coalition military history. The room remained completely silent as Taijo finished. This part of his story, that day, became known as the Battle of Seongho Ridge. It marked the beginning of the end of our war with humans. The veterans' hall had fallen completely silent. Even the usual sounds of breathing and movement had stopped as everyone focused on Taijo's story. The old warrior sat straighter now, as if the telling had given him strength rather than draining it. After the disaster at Seongho Ridge, Taijo continued. The Coalition War Council called an emergency meeting. For the first time in our history, we faced the possibility of defeat. Not just a setback, but true defeat. His scales had lightened somewhat, shifting from the dark purple of painful memories to a more neutral shade. I was summoned to the council meeting. As one of the few survivors of Seongho Ridge, my testimony was important. I told them everything, how the humans had lured us in, how they had sacrificed their own facility, How they seemed to understand our tactics better than we understood theirs. Tejo's middle eye, the heat-sensing one, swept across the crowd. The council members were shocked. Some refused to believe my report. They accused me of exaggerating, of letting fear cloud my judgment. But the facts were clear. We had lost nearly half our ground forces in a single day. He reached for his drink, his clawed hand steady now. While the council argued, we received a transmission from Earth. It came from a human leader named Hyesu. She was not someone we had dealt with before, not a military commander or government official we recognized. The interviewer leaned forward. Who was she? We learned later that she was part of something humans called their contingency government, leaders who remained hidden until needed. She had been a scientist before the war, specializing in alien biology. She understood us better than any human we had encountered. Taijo's scales rippled with remembered surprise. Hyesu's message was simple but shocking. She said, "We know the location of your homeworld. We know the positions of your colony planets. We know the routes your supply ships take. We are prepared to bring this war to your territory if necessary." The crowd murmured in disbelief. The council dismissed her claims as impossible. Humans didn't have faster-than-light travel. They couldn't reach our worlds. It had to be an empty threat. Tejo made that dry leaf sound again, his bitter laugh. Then Hyesu sent a second transmission. This one included detailed scans of our homeworld's defense systems, current scans showing recent changes we had made. She also included images of one of our colony worlds, a small outpost we had established only 20 cycles before the Earth War. His three eyes widened, recreating his shock from that day. The images were real. Somehow, the humans had obtained current information about worlds they shouldn't have been able to reach. The council was thrown into confusion. How was this possible? Taijo leaned forward, his voice dropping lower. The answer came from our own intelligence division. During the early days of the war, we had captured human scientists for questioning. Standard procedure. When we finished, we executed them, or thought we did. The interviewer's recording device moved closer. What happened to them? Some had survived. They had only appeared dead to our sensors, and during their captivity, they had gained access to our star charts, our technical data, our communication frequencies. When they escaped back to their people, they brought this knowledge with them. Taijo's scales darkened again. But that wasn't the worst part. The humans had also recovered technology from our crashed ships. They hadn't just studied it, they had adapted it. In less than a year, they had begun developing their own version of our faster-than-light communication system. He tapped his claws on the table, a nervous rhythm. They couldn't build ships to reach our worlds yet, but they could send signals that could carry destructive computer codes. The same kind of virus they had used against our fleet, but targeted at our homeworld's defense systems. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Hyesu made her terms clear: complete coalition withdrawal from Earth space, or they would launch attacks against our worlds. Not physical attacks, but information attacks that could cripple our systems. Taijo's outer membrane flickered with the memory. The council debated for 3 days. Some wanted to continue the fight, arguing that humans couldn't possibly pose a real threat to our homeworld. Others recognized that we had severely underestimated these creatures from the beginning. He gestured with his hand, indicating a division. In the end, the vote was close, but the withdrawal order was given. We would leave Earth, establish a quarantine zone around their solar system, and monitor them from a safe distance. The interviewer looked surprised. The mighty coalition retreated? Yes, Taijo said simply. The official records call it a strategic redeployment. Those of us who fought there know the truth. It was our first defeat in 500 cycles. He shifted his position, easing his old body. The withdrawal took 2 months. During that time, a strange thing happened. The humans stopped attacking us. As long as we were clearly leaving, they let us go in peace. They even allowed us to recover our dead from battle. Sights. Taijo's scales shifted to a lighter purple, showing confusion even after all these years. I was assigned to a recovery team near what humans called the Rocky Mountains. We were collecting the remains of fallen soldiers when I encountered her again. Suman, the human scientist who had helped me escape months earlier. His middle eye widened at the memory. She approached our team alone, unarmed. Our soldiers raised their weapons, but I ordered them to hold fire. She carried a small container. Inside were identification tags taken from our dead, what humans called dog tags. She had collected them from coalition soldiers who had died in that region. Tejo's voice softened. I asked her why she would do this. Why help the enemy identify their fallen? She said something I have never forgotten. Because in death we are not enemies. We are all just people far from home. The old veteran fell silent for a moment. Before she left, I asked her one more question. I asked why she had helped me escape that night when I was injured. She looked at me with those strange human eyes and said, because I needed to understand you. Not just how you fight, but how you think, how you feel. We can't make peace with creatures we don't understand. Tejo's scales rippled with emotion. That was when I realized something profound about humans. They hadn't just been fighting us, they had been studying us, learning about us as beings. While we saw them only as enemies to be conquered, they were trying to understand us at a deeper level. He looked around at the silent crowd. The last coalition ship left Earth orbit 50 cycles ago. Since then, we have maintained the quarantine zone around their solar system. No ships go in. No ships come out. The interviewer's recording device hovered closer. Have the humans tried to break the quarantine? No, Tejo said. At least not in any way we've detected. But our long-range sensors have observed their continued development. They are advancing quickly, using the technology they learned from us, combining it with their own innovations. His three eyes focused, intently on the crowd. The Coalition Intelligence Division estimates that humans will develop their own faster-than-light, travel within the next 20 cycles. When that happens, the quarantine will become meaningless. Tejo's scales shifted to a deep, thoughtful purple. Many in the Coalition fear that day. They believe the humans will seek revenge for our invasion. They point to human history, filled with wars and conflicts as evidence of their aggressive nature. He made a gesture with his hand, a sweeping motion that dismissed such fears. I disagree. I believe that when humans reach the stars, they will come not as conquerors, but as explorers. Yes, they are formidable warriors when threatened, but they are also curious, adaptable, and capable of surprising compassion. The old veteran straightened in his seat, his voice growing stronger. I have spent the last 50 cycles studying human transmissions, learning their languages, following their development. What I have seen gives me hope. They are using the knowledge gained from our conflict to advance their medicine, their science, their understanding of the universe. Tejo looked directly at the young aliens gathered around him. That is why I share my story with you today, not just as a warning about human military capabilities, but as a lesson about understanding other species. The Coalition's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human weapons. It was failing to understand human nature. His scales lightened to a calm, clear purple. When humans join the galactic community, and they will, we must be ready to meet them not as former enemies, but as potential allies. They have much to teach us about adaptation, innovation, and determination. Tejo reached out and deactivated the recording device. The universe is vast and filled with dangers we cannot imagine. When those dangers come, we may find that humans are exactly the allies we need. Beings who never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never ever surrender when protecting what they value. The old warrior rose slowly to his feet, his mechanical leg whirring softly. Remember this, young ones. In all my cycles of service across 17 conquered worlds, I never encountered a species that fought like humans, not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they understood something that we had forgotten after centuries of easy victories. Tejo's final words hung in the silent hall. They understood that true strength lies not in superior weapons or numbers, but in the ability to adapt, to learn from every defeat, and to rise stronger each time you fall.